Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40's Sean Cunningham. Sean, it's raining.
I don't like it. It also feels, by the way, and this could be my own doing, but it also feels like it's 7 a.m. Like, it doesn't look quite like the sun is out, so it looks like it's too early. The rain is what it is. It's really gloomy, and it's affecting my mood.
Just wait till tomorrow. Just wait till tomorrow when the time change happens.
Oh yeah. We gotta do that, don't we?
Oh, it's horrible.
What's your thoughts on that, guys?
This is the worst one. We should introduce.
I didn't even know that was happening tomorrow.
Also joining us is Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, thoughts on the time change?
I just have to remember when it's happening is all. More often than not, I feel like I'm not knowing in advance, and then I just wake up one day and I'm like, I feel different today, and then realize that my non-automatic clocks need to change. So that's typically how it goes for me.
That's the time? The time is affecting that? Or?
Well, it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you like? Do we need it anymore? I know that was like, I remember we voted on it. Somebody put it on the ballot, and I remember I was going to vote, and I'm like, wait, we get to vote on time change? Like, that's a thing?
That's awesome.
If it failed, I mean, we're still doing it.
This one hurts. Like, I swear, Brenden, I'll tell you this. As you get older, the time change hits differently. Like, every year that you get older, it seems like it hits you a little more and a little more. So, like sometimes it takes like 2 or 3 days to like feel right after these, because it is like a really weird change. And certainly I never go to bed early enough to like I don't wake up that early because I'm up so late because of what we do. And so it does hurt when you got to like set the clocks, or the wife has to get up and take the 15-year-old to school. That's never fun. Yeah. Monday will be tough. So what's going on, guys? How are you? Everyone good?
Everyone's good. Everyone's great.
Well, going great.
Doom and
Go ahead, I don't know, unless they were super pissed off about my Mike Brown comments. I saw a comment that's like, had to stop listening after that. I'm like, oh, you mean stop listening to this free fucking podcast? Cool, buddy. Cool. Okay. Like, it's going to hurt our feelings.
Sean just went there. He doesn't care about your thoughts.
It's an opinion, bro. Like I don't. The funny part is like, if you think Mike Brown's coach of the year, great. Like that's fine. And if he wins, like phenomenal. But I'm just saying, like, there's arguments to be made for other people, and I probably would vote for maybe a couple other people. And plus, we still have 17 games left. How many? No one wins coach of the year with 39 wins. So, but how about that?
True that.
40.
That's right. Okay, so let's take care of some business stuff. If you're watching here on YouTube, if you're new to the show, give us a subscription. Subscribe right there at the bottom. If you're not new to the show, or you are new to the show and just want to do it anyways, give us a thumbs up. That helps with the algorithm. It pushes it out to more people and does all kinds of weird things, and we have no idea what it actually happens on the back end. We just know that the more
Are we sure that it does
that?
Like, is it just a scam that YouTube does?
No, it's a scam because you keep telling people to hit it twice, and then they don't give us a thumbs up.
I learned, I was like, just hit it as many times as you can. It's like, oh, that doesn't do shit. It just actually hurts yourself. So I was like, okay.
That's funny. Tyler Griner in the chat says he thinks he'll listen to Zach Lowe, who says that Mike Brown is a front runner.
Yeah, he's a front runner. Duh. I just said what my opinion was. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I didn't say he wasn't going to win it.
We're all allowed to be wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
We're all allowed. So again, if you're watching on YouTube and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. If you're listening on whatever platform you listen, give us a rating and review if you get a chance. That helps as well. Outside of that, we've got a happy hour coming up. I haven't secured everything yet, and so we'll announce it as soon as possible. Again, the weeks are bad for like our Thursday night happy hour, so I'm gonna have to move it to a different night because the Kings play like every Thursday night for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Let's see. We're gonna start with the Kings win over the Knicks. We're gonna kind of cut through this one pretty quick because it is a day and a half ago. We've got a Kings Phoenix Suns game tonight, which we'll preview at the end. But just your guys' thoughts on the win over the Knicks, 122-117. Didn't feel like it was really that close for part of the game. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I thought that first half was maybe the best basketball we've seen the Kings play all year. There was still that shortcoming of offensive rebounds, but I thought specifically that third quarter was when it was particularly atrocious. But I thought that they played pretty good defense, but just couldn't get the final period to close out possessions by getting those rebounds. And they were able to get in the paint and score in the paint against a team that typically is very good at protecting the paint in that first half, and jumped out to a pretty substantial lead. So I also thought that as much as they want to downplay all the TNT stuff, there seemed to be a little bit more fire with the guys. But I don't know if that was just me.
Sean?
Yeah, they're I thought in watching a lot of the Knicks over the past few weeks, particularly during the streak, it was probably the worst I've seen them look. Like Emmanuel Quickly's been in really huge for them. It's so funny. Like we know Julius Randle, what he's done with his 3-point shooting, and then Tom Thibodeau tightens up the rotations and tells a few guys that, hey, we're not going to play you, like Derrick Rose and Cam Reddish. But like ever since they've done that, they've been really hot. I mean, this team has been really good dating back since not just like last month or the 9-game win streak, but really since like December. And it's been fun to watch how that team has developed. And like, I remember doing stuff in the with the Knicks right around the draft. A lot of Knicks fans did like these live shows, and they were saying how much they hated every player on their team. And we get it. Like, fans can react that way, obviously, overreact to certain things. And Emmanuel Quickly was like left for dead. And I'm like, no, this guy's pretty good, I feel. And then all of a sudden, look how important he is. Him and Julius Randle and let's not forget Jalen Brunson have like really played huge roles for them in turning their season around. So it had my curiosity, because these are like two of the hottest teams in the league just colliding on national TV, and there was so much talk about it, and it didn't go well for them. And it's so funny because here they go, build up this huge 21 point, whatever it was, lead for the Kings that is, and I just felt New York looked really terrible despite getting all these second chance points. Like, Quickly was 0 of 8 at one point. I think he didn't score until late in the fourth, and Randall did what he did, and then Brunson, stellar in the first half, and then he has to go away with a foot injury. So kind of felt like he got a little bit robbed there, but I think Mike Brown hit it on the head. I mean, he was furious after the game. I mean, you would have thought the Kings lost. And I guess if you ask Mike Brown, he felt that they did lose. There was a lot of things that would get, as he says, get your ass kicked in any game, playoff series, whatever, and he doesn't see his team trending the right way for the playoffs. And I'm inclined to believe him, but it's hard to do that when you've won 8 of 10. So I thought it was a culmination of what we've seen all season, and it was almost, Brenden, to your point, like the poster child of this Kings season, where you can look entirely awful at times, but because of this miraculous offense that has been among the best in NBA history, and you have just incredible fourth quarter performance by De'Aaron Fox, you find yourself winning a basketball game, and at times having a 20-point lead, but also just giving it away in mere moments. So I thought that game, it was fitting that game was on national TV, because it was exactly what you've come to expect from this Kings team.
Yeah, okay, so I'll address the offensive rebounding thing was horrible. Like, we've seen that pop up. I think that's the one interesting thing that Harrison Barnes brought up. Like, it's not like this is the first time they've had issues with offensive rebounds. Like, they lost the game to Memphis because Steven Adams, like, ripped down, like, 15 offensive rebounds and just killed them. Maybe it wasn't 15, but it felt like 15, and it was close. And so they do know that that's a problem. But in this game in particular, like, the Knicks shot like 13 of 50 from 3. They just kept hoisting up bad shots. And Julius Randle, 2 of 12. RJ Barrett, 1 of 8 from 3. Like, these are numbers that you just don't expect from those. So just take those two guys right there. What are they, 3 for 20 between the two of them? So I want to like just hammer the Kings for bad offensive rebounding. But I also watched the game and saw how many of those rebounds were ridiculously bad 3-point shots that flew way further out. They weren't in the rebound zone. And I thought early in the game, Keegan Murray did an excellent job of chasing down rebounds outside the zone. And he was flying out and grabbing all these rebounds that were really bad misses. And he didn't play a lot in the second half, and they got absolutely killed, crushed on the offensive boards. And I think it's one of those issues where it's everybody, like this, like specifically, like the offensive rebounding in this game. It's Kevin Herter, it's De'Aaron Fox, it's Malik Monk, it's Harrison Barnes, and it's not that they weren't getting rebounds; it's that they weren't even boxing out well enough to like give anyone else a shot. And so I understand why Mike Brown was pissed. I mean, the Knicks shot 17 more shots than the Kings. How you win a game where your opposing team shoots 17 more field goal attempts than you, I don't even understand how that happens. They got dominated on the glass. So it's something that I think will pop up again as we get towards the end of the season. Like there'll be another game or two like this. But this team isn't really a bad defensive rebounding team. They're like number 7 in the league, and they've been in the top 5 almost the entire season. You're going to have nights like this. And so I think there are a couple of things that Mike Brown brought to the table that I thought was really interesting. We'll dive deep into what Mike Brown's like overall comments and stuff were. But the one thing that he did say was invisible slippage, which I thought was such a unique term to use. And it's something that he sees things that we're not seeing that are kind of like, I don't know, like predictors of things that are going to come. And he's trying to stop those things now. And it is things that, again, you could have still been a bad offensive rebounding team in that game and given up 8 boards. And Mike would have been pissed about it because you could see that there was an issue there. But it's because they had so many, 23 offensive boards, that it became like this gigantic conversation. But there are other things that the Kings are doing that are sort of the same thing that just haven't been as glaring. And so what are your thoughts on his comments about invisible slippage?
Well, we definitely see it. Sorry, Brenden, I'll let you go here in a second. I definitely see it. I think it dates back really to some of the bad habits he saw in the Pelicans game. I mean, we clearly know the shortcomings of this Kings team, but you're letting a lot of smalls get into the paint and take the ball from you. It's particularly when he's talking about emphasis on boxing out. It's the reliance too much on your stars and Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, and he wants them to be the ones to hold players accountable and not him having to beat the drum all the time. He wants them to have to speak up on it when these guys typically don't. And that's, I think, at the core of what he's talking about. I disagree that we don't see it because we've been seeing it for a greater part of a few weeks. They just find ways to be able to close out games, which is great, but bad characteristics are popping up. Sorry, Brenden.
No, you're good. I totally agree. I think that, making sure that you're not getting complacent in wins, which is another thing that he mentioned, is what can turn a good team into a great one. And the Kings are still far from reaching that. But I think that making sure you're staying locked in, the emphasis he put on coming out of post All-Star breaking, making sure that your foot is still on the gas, making sure that right now, I know you're 7-1 post All-Star break, but we have not been good enough. And I think emphasizing that is so important and a great example for kind of the culture that he's trying to implement of accountability. And when it comes to those rebounds, like I think it was Harrison Barnes that mentioned, I didn't make it a practice yesterday, but from watching your guys' clips, they just cut out half of those. It doesn't need to be all of them, because that it was unacceptable. There are long ones, but a big issue I saw is that guys are going and chasing the rebound rather than finding where their guy is, where the other Nick is, and putting a body on them. Like Josh Hart had how many offensive rebounds he ended up with? 8, I think it was. And
I think he set the Knicks record for a guard.
And by the time he has 5, how is he ever allowed to get into the paint after a shot goes up? Like when you're already at the point where the offensive rebounds have been ridiculous and you're not boxing out, I think that's where a lot of that frustration came from. Some of them were really long rebounds, but I think just putting a body on someone rather than going and chasing the ball yourself is really important. But I loved the quotes that we got from Mike Brown. I expected him to be a little annoyed about the offensive rebounds, but was surprised, especially after a pretty lighthearted presser with De'Aaron and Malik, that we swapped over to Mike Brown being critical. But I love it, man. I think that this is the accountability that has allowed this season to change in the way that it has.
Well, and what
Yeah,
happens historically with long rebounds, though? I mean, it's the messages to the guards, man. Like, they don't collapse. They want to get back on the other end. It's like, no, I mean, that'll take care of itself. You have a very high-paced, very fast-paced offense. It'll get back there. You don't have to start leaking out. That's what he's talking about. Even long rebounds, you're not collapsing. You're not coming into and these are the things that he's talking about.
Yeah, I think, again, like some of the points that Brenden made early, like I thought the defense was actually really good in this game as opposed to what we've seen throughout this season. I think that they are getting better defensively, but in order to close out a defensive possession, you have to get the rebound. And I think they just played defense way too much. And they still held the Knicks to 41% shooting, 26 from 3. Like these are numbers that the Kings don't typically do at all. And I thought that we're seeing some progress on the defensive side of the ball. We're seeing some slippage from individual players where, Brenden put out a video of Keegan Murray, and Keegan has been he's just a quarter of a step slow, and he's been getting beat to the bucket quite a bit lately, and then fouling hard, which I think is interesting too, because he's trying to get physical, but way too late in possessions. And so I think we can see some of that, but that's like one individual who's having a little bit of an issue, and I think it's something that he can clean up, and it might be fatigue. It might be like a million different things, talking about a rookie, 65 games into his first season. But overall, I think we have seen like some progress. I think the cool thing about Mike that we've seen throughout the year is like there's this positivity that he comes into the season with, and we're all like, okay, this is fun. We have that yell, the moment early in training camp. I mean, on media day, where someone yells across the gym and he yells back, and it becomes a meme. So we had that moment. We had the moment where he took your mic, Sean, and started interviewing Jay Triano. We had the moment where he was talking about Malik as sixth man of the year and almost kicked the table off the stage, and putting his foot up on the table for some reason. Like, we've had all of these moments where Mike is like this fun, charismatic, super cool guy with the media. But at the same time, we also know that behind the scenes, he practices these guys really, really hard. The film study is every day. Like, they are working so hard to get this team to a different level. And they keep raising to a different level. And we talk about, like Sean mentioned, the 7-1 since the All-Star break, right? Like, this is a point where good teams gear up for the playoffs. I don't think anyone expected the Kings to just instantly walk in and gear up for the playoffs like they're one of those teams. And it's not because they're not talented or they're not good enough or whatever. It's because they don't have the experience to really like get what's happening. And it doesn't seem to matter. And it seems to me that every step of the way, Mike keeps pushing the envelope with his players. And we've got to this new phase where he wants more out of De'Aaron and Domas, and he wants to demand something different from these guys. And it's sort of that moment that you can hand a team over. You roll a ball out onto the field or the court, and they start doing their own drills, and they start calling each other out for things that they're making mistakes on, and they start to sort of self-evaluate and self-coach on the field. That's what we're seeing from Mike at this point. Now he's turning the screws. And it's almost like we're watching a team go from like a 30-win team to maybe a 500 team to maybe a 50-win team to maybe not a first round out, maybe a second round team, all in one season, in this weird way that Mike is sort of hitting these plateaus and then pushing forward with his team and then demanding something different that you would expect. Like, maybe what he wants right now is something that we should expect next season by mid-year. But no, this team has been too good, and they've shown that they can handle it. And so he keeps feeding more. Am I like way off base there? Because that's what I kind of feel like. Mike keeps demanding more because he keeps seeing that his team is ready for more. And I didn't expect it, and I don't think he did. I don't think the players expected it, but it is what it is. You're in this position, you got to keep pushing.
Yeah, and he wants them to believe it. Like, everything we've talked about it since he got here. It's like he's the right coach for the moment. You look at all those coaches that they talked to and interviewed, but this is an attention to detail type head coach. Not every coach is like that. I mean, certainly you can look at his predecessor. That's definitely not somebody who was like that. So, when you look at what Mike Brown is doing, he's got this team believing. But he also, even though it's like, I don't think any player is content with where they're at, or even just content with just making the playoffs and just checking that box of the goal of, well, you're not a play-in team, you're legit playoff, or you're not a play-in team, you're a legit playoff team. You're not going to fall out of where you're at really beyond whatever spot. You're not going to fall past 6, that's for sure. You're probably not going to fall out of 2 or 3. So like, believing in what you've done, but your actions can tell you that possibly you're just content with, okay, we're here now, we can relax a little bit. No, it's the time, as James said, to tighten those screws. And it's a double down of what you've already done. Now that you've accomplished this, great. Now show why. Now show that 2 is not a fluke, and you go out and believe that you can be a team that contends for, dare I say, a championship. That's what the mentality that he wants them to think about, and it takes that type of mindset and mentality to achieve that. And when you see the slippage, he's calling it out because. And he'll do so in more violent ways than he did just the other night with going forward if it continues to happen. And it's crazy because, again, we're talking about a team that's won 8 of 10. So the fun part is, and if anyone gets a chance, watch the video from yesterday, because he talks about learning that mentality, having players that allow you to coach them, allow you to be difficult and strict and all those things in a players league. And that is what, the art of coaching is lost a lot of the times in the NBA. It's not here in Sacramento because they rely on it heavily.
Him echoing it being a players league and sharing with you guys at practice yesterday, like a story with Popovich in his exit interview, and talking about just pulling Tim Duncan in there, and the exit interviews just thanking him for letting me coach you that hard, because the other players seeing that means that I'm allowed to do the same, and they sort of kind of all have to fall in line. And you're seeing that happen with De'Aaron and with Domas. And I think that in that post-game presser, something else in there is how glowingly he talked of De'Aaron, and that's why he has these high expectations. But I think that was the first time, in my mind, it's like, he's great in the fourth quarter, but there's a reason he can't do that all game long. And that was the first time I feel like I've heard coach be like, well, why can't he? And that doesn't mean scoring. That doesn't mean putting up a mid-range isolation jumper every single time. That means like keeping your foot on the gas where you are getting those paint touches and then making things happen from there for yourself or other people, but primarily defensively, in my mind. Like, we've seen De'Aaron be a really good defender for stretches this year. And if he could do that consistently, like Coach Brown was talking about, he really thinks he could be, and it's still a could right now, and if he can do it for the 35 minutes instead of the 8 that he does in the fourth quarter, of that he could be elite. And Coach Brown has been around elite players. So I think that part of where this criticism is coming from is because he has such high belief in his guys.
Yeah, and I'll take it too. Like, we went to the locker room afterwards and we talked to Kevin Huerter. And I think it may, like, if you listen to the Kevin Huerter, if you listen to the interview with Kevin, you might start to think that, like, we're trying to push some agenda, or like, as media members, that we're trying to, like, oh, Mike called you guys out, like, and that's not what we were trying to do. Like, in the moment, Kevin was being very open and introspective, and I thought really good, but that's a moment where you sense that you can get someone to say something that kind of ties it all together. And I think when we kept pushing him a little bit, he said, like, look, this is who Mike has been since the beginning. So, like, if you didn't understand, like, at the end of the first month or the end of the second month, that this is what we're in for, that this is what we're doing here, then you don't need to be here. He's like, for what did he say? For lack of a better team, like, we effed up. Like, there are things that we're doing wrong, and Mike he's holding us accountable in a different way than maybe any of these guys have ever been held accountable. And it's good. They understand it now. Their expectations are that Mike will hold them accountable like this. They will celebrate really, really good wins. They won't celebrate bad wins. And that's something that's really different in Sacramento. It's something we're not used to. And it's something a lot of these players aren't used to. Like celebrating good wins is one thing, but like not celebrating when you squeak out like a bad win. It's one thing if this would have been a hell of a game and both teams are going toe to toe, like the Clippers win, right? Where you 176, 175. Like you could have picked that thing apart, but that was some of the most elite offensive like performances we've ever seen in an NBA game. That was wild. Seeing two teams go to toe to toe. That's not a game where Mike Brown is calling his team out for winning by 1 point and giving up 175. This was different. This was where you had one aspect of the game where you failed yourself and you kept doing it because it's not like Mike Brown didn't yell at them at halftime. I went back and looked, I think they had 13 offensive rebounds, the Knicks, in the second half. That means they had 10 in the first half. It was an issue the whole game. They did address it at halftime. It did not get better. It got worse. And so that's where Mike is someone who is going to hold you accountable every step of the way. And again, to get back to Kevin, Kevin knows it. These players know it. This is what they're in for. And they signed the contract. Like they're on board. And the reason Mike has this much leeway, he can say whatever he wants. The reason why he has this much leeway, it's because it's flat out working. It is. You know, and if they were a team that's sitting at 28 wins right now and they're just trying to scrape into the back end of the playoff, the play-in, like I don't think you would have the same vibe. That's not who this team is, and a lot of it is because of this mentality, but a lot of it is because the wins kept coming and they kept building off of it.
One of the things Coach talked about coming into the year was a set of values that are led and upheld by the leaders. And he talked about how that starts with him, but eventually it needs to be the players out there that are coaching themselves. And we've reached that point where that is fully his expectation. You know, I feel like previously it was talked about where eventually we'll reach that point. After the game against the Knicks, he was very clear, like that needs to happen right now with Fox and Sabonis. Like their words are going to carry more weight than mine when they're on the floor. And they need to be calling these guys out. And other players will know where it's coming from. But we've reached the point where Coach Brown fully expects those guys to be calling out the other members of their teammates when they're not doing their job. And the other guys need to understand where that's coming from, that it's all coming from a good place. They're all working towards the same goal. But we've fully reached that point. I feel like that's the first time we've heard Coach Brown say, like, that needs to happen right now. Not it will happen eventually. We need it right now.
Yeah, I want to bring out here in the chat here. Where did that go?
While you find it, James, I mean, you just go back a few weeks ago. I mean, moments where Mike Brown isn't giving the chain out, the defensive player of the game chain out because no one deserved it. That was in a win too. These are moments where Mike Brown continues to be himself, and his team knows. Like none of what Mike Brown did the other night surprised anybody. I exchanged some messages with a couple players, and it was completely expected. The attention to detail is always called out. They don't care even if it comes out into a press setting, and no one should because Mike keeps it 100 every single time, whether it's to a media member, a fan, someone in that locker room. The only difference is sometimes in the locker room you might have a little bit more colorful language, but the message is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, this is the thing that I wanted to bring up. We can't celebrate bad wins after losing for 16 seasons from AA in the chat. No, you as a fan can celebrate wins. You can celebrate every single win if you want. Mike Brown and his team can't celebrate wins when they're not good enough. And if they want to separate themselves from the 16 years of losing, which they've tried this season to do, like, hey, this isn't us. Like all these years of losing, we're a different team. We're a different coaching staff. We're a different, player group. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to separate themselves from those 16 years of losing and make this about this season and about this group and about this coaching staff. So yes, as a fan, you can celebrate all you want, whether they win or lose, and that's something like when we walk out, like, I don't care. Like winner, like I don't care how they win, they just keep winning. Now we got to a point where you might start caring about how they win because you're at this point where you're the number 2 seed in the East in the Western Conference. You've almost locked up a home court advantage first round series, and you're at this point where it's okay for Mike to demand more, to want his players to want more. And again, the fans at this point, I get like the house money. We've talked about house money before, and I think it's okay for fans to believe in house money. It's not okay for Mike and his team to believe in house money because why? Why not you? Why does it have to be someone else that wins the first round, that gets to the second round, that might get to the third round? It doesn't have to be someone else. It could be you. You're the best offense in the history of the NBA. Like literally, it is the greatest offensive rating in the history of the NBA, and it's not even close. I mean, this team is really good offensively. So, like, yeah, you got a bunch of things to clean up, but I guess it can be you, and so I'm intrigued by it. It's fun to watch the whole thing play out, like on a daily, and being around this group and watching them kind of take these leaps and bounds. And again, no one is more shocked about 7-1 after the All-Star break than me, I would say, but also I even think these guys, and it's given them an opportunity to believe a little bit more in themselves and what they're doing.
Mike Brown should be coach of the year.
Suck it, Sean.
Coaching happens at every team for the most part, every good team. So I don't know. That's what coaching looks like.
It's funny, like there's been so many times where you hear, "Oh, coaching doesn't really matter all that much." Like, man, right. I guess it doesn't mean when you're a bunch of 30-win teams. That's true, but like we're seeing how a coach and a coaching staff can change the direction of a franchise. I mean, I think
it's like Jerry Reynolds always says. He's like, Greg Popovich can go out there, win all those games with the Spurs, and then have a team like this year where he's terrible. It's like, well, Greg Popovich didn't change. Like he's still, like certainly there's things he could do better, but that doesn't really fall on the coach. So
yeah.
I feel like there's like 5 or so coaches at the top of the league that will actually lead to your team getting more wins. There's 5 or so at the bottom of the league that are probably contributing more in the wrong direction. And then there's just the middle, and the Kings dramatically flipped from one side to the other in my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was just say, like, you watch some coaches coach themselves out of victories. Like, I think, here we are with the Kings sitting at 39 wins right now. And I remember that Dave Yeager season. And the way they were playing, I mean, it was like almost like Mike Brown, 2 guys that come in with kind of a defensive mindset, realize that they don't have a defensive team, and while you can try and wish you're one thing, you are the other. You're a fast-paced offense, and he goes out and with smoke and mirrors and wins 39 games, and a lot of that was coaching. A lot of that was coaching in games. Making in-game adjustments, and I think Mike has been really good with that. I know a lot of people like to, just like any coach, they like to nitpick a lot of rotations and players and things like that, but he told you who he was. He's a guy who's very attentive to the details, and he prefers a tight, shortened rotation, much like most coaches do, because they don't trust the majority of the players on the back end of their roster. So that's not exclusive to Mike Brown. That's how a lot of coaches are. But in-game coaching means everything, and I think there are a lot of similarities to be drawn from this season to that Dave Yeager season that ended in 39 wins, and fortunately for Mike Brown and this year's team, it's going to end in quite a few more.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Okay, so we have 17 games left. The Kings face the Phoenix Suns tonight in Phoenix. It's a huge game. Phoenix is back 2.5 games back in the standings with 3 games in the loss column. We're getting down to like the very, very end here, and it's a huge game. But I think we keep seeing these moments of like brevity from this team. So while we have Mike demanding these things and going crazy, Brenden, you brought it up. We had this moment with Malik Monk where he had he slipped and said something he in an inappropriate statement that he didn't mean to say. towards De'Aaron Fox, and it started to like unwind. We had Monk. Monk's team lost in shooting practice yesterday at practice before the team boarded a plane for Phoenix. And then he tried to skirt out without doing his 10 push-ups. And they dragged him back out and they made him do push-ups. And De'Aaron Fox had him in a headlock for a minute. Like there's a joy and a like while on one side we see like the tension that Mike Brown is forcing on this team to get better. And then on the other side, we still see that they love the game and they love each other and they're having a great time. And it's a different dynamic than I've seen in a long time with this team. And a lot of that, I think, like Sean keeps saying that he believes that Malik Monk is the most important player on this team. Is that what you said, Sean?
I do. Yes, not the best player. There's a huge separation there, but he is the most important player to this team's success by virtue of his attitude, his swagger. When he's good, this team is sizzling and they look like they're world beaters. And when he's terrible and he turns the ball over, they look like shit. Like they really do. I mean, when they're at their best, it's when Malik Monk is feeding this team's energy. He is that spark plug. So, yeah, to me, he is absolutely their most important player on the court and off the court.
And that personality doesn't change when he's having a bad game. You know, like it's not just about when he has a great play. Somebody else could have an amazing play and he's been sitting the last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter and he's one of the first guys off the bench screaming, congratulating. Like it's the consistency of this personality and sort of like infectious joy that he plays with, you know? And I think that there's also nobody on the team that seems to be like in their feelings or pouting or anything like that. And I think just having one of those can really drag you down emotionally, you know? And I think that there is such I'm sure a lot of enjoyment comes from winning games, you know, as much as it's a great personality group. I think that winning games obviously helps, but it's definitely one of the more underrated aspects of this season. And it goes just beyond the roster too. Like the players themselves. I think the rest of the coaching staff deserves to be mentioned as well. Like, I think there's a great group of personalities there. I think that Jay Triano seems to be a hilarious personality that you enjoy being around. Everybody on that coaching staff, Doug Christie, Lindsey Harding, you know, I think that so many people are so well liked amongst each other and all working towards the same goal that absolutely the chemistry is playing a big part in this.
Yeah, and you bring that up, like the coaching staff, while I feel like there is like, again, like what you bring up, all these characters, even Jordy Fernandez and Luke Laux and all this stuff, there's also an edge to most of them. And it's while they are fun-loving guys and, you know, they bring personality, they also are very demanding. Each individual one of them is very demanding. I know Doug works with Davion Mitchell like every day. You can see the two of them working together. He's trying to make him better, but Doug has always had this personality. Like if you talk to him off the side, where he demands excellence just like Mike does, where he expects players to be so laser focused, but he tries to explain the why. Like he doesn't want someone just to do something. He wants them to understand why they're doing it and how it leads to better things for themselves and others. And it's something that like he learned from Pete Carril. But I feel that same way with almost every single one of them. Like Jay Triano is a funny dude, and he's a little strange. He's got like a really zany personality, but at the same time, I don't think anyone would want to cross Jay Triano. You get that vibe from him too, that like he's a no nonsense guy that like has no problems ripping into somebody. And I think that's like Jay. Oh, I like Jay a lot. Yeah,
We're
no,
all
I
strange.
think I think in his own way, yeah, he's different. He's a much different dude. I don't know. Like I enjoy like talking to him, and I've enjoyed, you know, like doing a long form piece on him. But I do think that like he's an interesting cat. Like he's not just all about basketball. He is all about basketball, but he's not just all about basketball. And I think that's a big thing. He brings a different feel to the team than all of the other guys. And so anyway, yeah, I think it's a unique group, Brenden. It's good that you brought that out, that, you know, this group is, you know, Like they're working really well together as a coaching staff to fix some of the problems that we're seeing. And like the Kings are quietly getting better, like on the defensive end. They aren't just saying, okay, like, look, we're a bad defensive team. We're going to go out and outscore everybody. They're not giving in. They're still trying to get better. And you can see it. Even, again, in the Knicks game, the Pelicans game, you see the rotations are different. You see the way that they're cutting, players off and help defense. It's just different. They are quietly getting better while the offense is carrying them, which is a good sign, I think.
In that Knicks game, it's actually, despite the 23 offensive rebounds, it's the 4th lowest field goal percentage they've held any team to this year, which is ridiculous. They are still post All-Star break, just teams post All-Star break 28th in defensive rating at 120. I think that there are moments where you see it be better, but then there's other games where it's pretty bad still. And it's about like, can they just lock up for 20 minutes? And the nights that they do it, they tend to be in games late, and you have the best clutch scorer in the league. That's a good recipe. But I do think there have been nights. I think that Pelicans game and a couple in these homestand where it's like, okay, that defense was pretty horrible.
Yeah.
I like that you said just. The defensive rating is just 28th.
Yeah. Not
There's
great.
a lot to be desired. Not great. But you're right. I mean, those are that's all they're trying to do. Find more minutes where you can extend out solid defensive play. And it's been hard to find lately, but in moments they have it. And if you could rewind to December where they were putting stretches together and looking like they had made some strides, certainly. But who knows? I also feel like this is a very generic, almost like storybook movie kind of thing to say, but I want to see, like, I've talked about it going back till, I don't know, January was where I think is when the first time I said I think this team would be a tough out in the playoffs. Seeing this team in a series, and I think maybe it's because we've seen so many of these like 2-game series throughout the course of the season, like you do see how a little glimpse of what a team could look like in a series. And I feel like putting this team in the playoffs, give them that taste of the playoffs or any kind of postseason series where you have to just really lock in on one opponent for an extended better part of a week or 2 weeks, however long it ends up being, will bring that out of this team, because you're not having to worry about different scouting reports from different teams night in and night out. And all right, we just played Dallas, and now we got to go out here and play Phoenix, and now it's over to Oklahoma City. If you can, it's a generic thing to say because anybody's going to get better when you're focusing on one opponent. But how do the Kings do it? And that's because of their competitive nature and the way this team has that kind of fortitude about them. I'm interested to see how that trickles over. Like, a team can go and be 28th in defensive rating, like you're talking about, Brenden. Put them in a playoff series, I think you're going to see a dramatic shift to the other side. Dramatic meaning maybe 20, maybe 15. When you stack up that number in a playoff series against what they've done in the season, I think that will be interesting to go back and look at as whenever their season wraps up and what they look like throughout the postseason.
Yeah, it's interesting we're talking about Kings in the postseason. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, how about that?
I'm still like 40 wins. Are we like, when's it? Does that kind of happen tonight?
Yeah, the crazy thing is, so we have this weird thing where fans are super hyper-focused on 40 wins, and it's because the guys during the preseason game run around screaming, we're going to win 40 games, which was kind of a...
Summer League, James. That was
Summer League.
Center.
My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, where the guys are bouncing around screaming, we're going to win 40. And God bless those guys. They're getting a lot of pub right now, and good for them. But 40 doesn't really mean anything. No. Even 41. So, like, we have this weird stat that Rick Adelman, in his 8 years as a head coach of the Sacramento Kings, put up, a 500 season every single season, right? He's the only head coach in the Sacramento era, which is in his 38th season, I believe, to actually post a 500 season in Sacramento. Like, Dave Yeager didn't do it. No, it's not great. Even when the Kings made the playoffs in the 1995-96 season under Gary St. Jean, that was a 39-win team. The year before was a 39-win team. Their first year in Sacramento, I think, was like 38 wins, 39 wins. There's only been 8 total seasons where the Kings have put up a 500 win percentage. And so for me, that's the big one that's coming. Like the 40 is like, okay, you hit the 40 plateau. It's the most wins that I've seen covering this team would be 40. Jaeger year was at 39, was the highest in the last 13 seasons. But like the fact that this team is just should just roll right past 41 wins, like it's pretty crazy. I said should. You hear that, Brenden?
Well, you have 2 wins with the remaining 17. I think that's a should. That's okay.
That's a should.
We got one from Sean.
We got a should from Sean.
Love it.
Optimism.
All right. Hey, if you guys are still watching here on the YouTube channel and you don't mind and you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. That would help us. It just pushes the algorithm. Thanks for tuning into the Kings Beat podcast.
How many do we have right now, James?
It's fluctuating around 200 people the whole time, which is really good. I mean, I think that's better than some local radio shows get. So, yeah. So no, it's good. That's a good number for a Saturday afternoon. Where are you guys at with this Phoenix Suns team? They have the big issue with Kevin Durant going down again, and we don't know how long that's going to be for. But it doesn't look like it's a short-term thing. There's a lot of teams around the Kings that are like. There's one day where every single injury report that happened around the league was like impacting where the Kings were in the standings, which was wild and crazy. But what are your thoughts on Phoenix?
Well, you said tonight is what did you use? Super huge, important game, super big game. What did you call it?
I don't know. Did I use super huge? No, it's an important game. Like
important, yeah. But I'm just curious of the 17 remaining, how many more times we can say, like, how many games on their schedule will be considered important? I don't disagree. I think this is a kind of a monster of a game, especially without Kevin Durant, and just as you pointed out, where this team is in the standings and in relation to you, but it almost feels like all of them are really important. I do wonder how this team will go into the playoffs. Here we are talking about, digging deep and doubling down on your success and really fine-tuning some things, but all the while realizing that you've got this thing kind of wrapped up. I mean, you've got it in a postseason bag a little bit, and I just wonder if there is going to be a mentality switch. And so how many of these games going forward, which ones can you identify as being the important ones?
Well, this one is big because they're 0-2 against Phoenix on the season, and it's a Pacific Division rival, and they're 3 games back in the loss column, 2.5 games back overall. That's why this one's big. Like,
yep.
I don't think we're going to circle the Milwaukee Bucks game. Say, is this a measuring stick game? Oh, it's a huge game. No, like if you lose to the Milwaukee Bucks, that's okay. You lost to one of the best teams in the league. If you lose to the Boston Celtics, that's fine. You lost to one of the, if not best teams in the league. But this Phoenix team is behind you in the standings. They're down one of their stars. Their division rival, all these things. The 0-2 against them. I think I don't know that there's even a way to get a tiebreaker against Phoenix, because Phoenix has this crazy division record of 9-1, and the Kings are 7-6. So the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. And the best the Kings can do with the Phoenix Suns is to tie the tiebreaker, is to, go 2-2. That forces the next tiebreaker, which is division record if you're in the same division. And since these two teams are in the same division, the Kings would need somehow for the Suns to lose 5 straight games in division play. And I don't think that's going to happen. And so then the third tiebreaker is conference record. So you need to beat this team outright if you want to be above them in the playoffs, and if you want to have not only guarantee a first round playoff series, but also home series, but also the second round. If there's some way this team does get to the second round, it would be nice to have home court advantage in the second round too.
Absolutely. 2.5 games up on this team. You play them twice. If you drop both of those, that's half a game left for margin of error right there. And like you mentioned, the tiebreakers are almost certainly going to be in Phoenix's. And in favor of Phoenix. But I think another big thing tonight, obviously, is offensive rebounds. This is another team that is a good offensive rebounding team. Phoenix is 5th in offensive rebounds, and this is a good opportunity to bounce back specifically in that aspect. But this is one of those matchups that I worry about a little bit sometimes with the Kings. I think that Phoenix is a solid defensive team, but they have extremely smart offensive players. And if you're slow to rotate, Chris Paul is going to pick you apart. Devin Booker is going to pick you apart. DeAndre Ayton can take advantage if that weak side help isn't helping Sabonis out. Like, this is absolutely one of those teams that in my mind can do a great job taking advantage of those specific weaknesses that Sacramento's shown. And Monty Williams is a great coach on the other end as well. So I think that this one should have some importance going into it for sure. And it's a good opportunity to kind of bounce back, even though last game was a win.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that it should matter to you, and it should matter because it's a team that's right around you in the standings. Like, again, it's one thing to lose to a crazy good Bucks team, but this is a team that you're competing with, and you need to show that you're ready for that next step. That, again, if you go 0-3, 0-4 in the regular season against the Suns, and somehow you match up against them in some other round, it's probably not going to be great. Like, they know you. They know how to get under your skin. They know how to beat you. And, they might have Kevin Durant back for the playoffs, which you really haven't seen yet. So, I don't know. Like, I think all 17 games are really important. And I don't expect this team to let off the gas. But at the same time, some games have more importance just because of you're at in the standings. Okay, so do we have any of these other... I mean, we talked about Monk. Kevin Huerter's been really good over the last 2 weeks. Domantas Sabonis has been good for 65 games. Trey Lyles just continues to have moments where you appreciate him more as a player. Even in the Knicks game, he came away with 16 points, huge. I don't know. Is there any of these players you guys want to delve into, or are you guys good?
Well, I did like the moment Trey Lyles is having this week. I think he's had a really phenomenal week, especially with this team. But even that late bucket that he had against the Knicks, and he just pumps his fist, and it looked like an overhand right that he would have knocked somebody out with. It was good to see that emotion from him, because he's a guy that just kind of ho hum and he comes up big and has a lot of big moments, and his teammates are usually the ones. I wouldn't call him quite Keegan Murray, but he's definitely on the Keegan Murray side of his emotions in terms of not being the most expressive. So it was great to see that moment from him and that fire, and it really sparked the crowd. So I think Trey Lyles deserves a huge recognition from just this week and some of the stuff that he's been able to do. And let's face it too, when Mike Brown when the Kings started that second half, or maybe I'm trying to remember actually, because no, it started the fourth quarter, and he started that fourth quarter with some of the bench players still, and it got off to a really awful start, and he had to bring the starters back in. There was a little bit of frustration on the bench there, guys like Chimezie Metu and Trey Lyles in the huddle. And excuse me, and it was interesting to see how quickly that dissolved, because Mike Brown's killing them for things that they're doing on the floor. You see a moment where they had gave up 5 or 6 straight offensive rebounds to the Knicks, and it was Trey Lyles to recognize that. They called it out in the huddle. There was some frustration there, and then he comes out later on in the game and just has a tremendous impact again. So yeah, I give him big kudos for the way this week has played out for him.
Trey's been closing games sometimes for good reason, and you saw that in that Knicks game. I think 7:40 mark is what I have written down, where he came in for Keegan and closed that one out and was really impressive. It is kind of funny to me that in the Bagley deal, I primarily focused on DiVincenzo, and it was okay, and there's Trey Lyles, I guess. And now it's Trey Lyles is right up there with Dante's sort of production. Dante's been great in Golden State, not to take anything away from him, but I think that Trey's been phenomenal. And I thought of him as kind of just another piece in that deal rather than a centerpiece in any sort of way. And now there's going to eventually be a conversation of this guy probably needs to be back in Sacramento next year. And we'll see what that ends up looking like when it comes to contracts. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I think James and I touched on it a little bit the other day, but he's been truly phenomenal. Anytime that you're comfortable playing a guy the last 7-8 minutes of a game, that's how you know where the coaching staff is at with him, and I think it's for good reason.
Yeah, he's a heady player, and I think there's going to be a lot of teams around the league that like what he does. I don't think it will equate to like some outlandish contract for Trey, but I do think that he's a guy that, can fit on almost every roster. And the fact that he can play the 4 and the 5 to me has been huge. Like the Kings shifting him over and being a small ball 5 has been tremendous. It's given them even more versatility. He was defending Julius Randle. Him and Harrison, I thought both did a really good job on Randle. Don't look at the points, look at the field goal percentage. Was he like 6 of 17 or something from the field? It wasn't.
We
good,
started off
it was.
like 1 of 8. It was really
Yeah.
tough that first opening quarter.
8 of 22.
I thought that 8 of 22. Yeah, they were in. They got into him and like they made him. Like he made mistakes. He's pretty sloppy as a player, anyways. Kind of been interesting how he's just like continued to put up big numbers. Anyway, I think Trey's been great. Yeah, and he's people asked the other day what he was reading. He's reading American Psycho. So he's
Like
a guy
the movie,
who,
like the Christian Bale one.
yeah, I think that comes from a book. Yeah, so I believe that's what he's reading. I'm not sure if it's the same, but it's American Psycho. That's what he's been reading because he's been known to hold a book with him while he's doing his post game, and people have asked like, "Hey, what's he reading? What's he reading?" So yeah, he said it's different. He tries to read a book every couple of weeks, and this is just his latest book, and it was something that he picked up, and it's been intriguing for him. So
Pretty crazy
okay.
movie.
Yeah.
Brenden
No,
probably
it's-
hasn't seen it.
He probably hasn't seen it. No. But it's got like my favorite parts of those movies is when he's killing people while describing the music that they're listening to.
You like Huey Lewis?
Yeah, Huey Lewis or this is the greatest love of all, Whitney Houston. He starts
Houston.
describing where it was in the charts and everything else while he's chasing someone
Phil
around the
Collins.
house. Phil Collins.
Fantastic.
Brendan has no idea what we're talking
Nope.
about.
Christian
Yeah.
Bale, buddy. Christian Bale.
I know
Good
the name.
cast. Willem Dafoe. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So that is what he's reading. Okay, should we get to the business of basketball? The business of basketball. Where are you guys at with this team as far as like, how is this thing gonna finish? Like I don't know how else to phrase it. We don't need to do like a record in the final 17, but I'm more like, where do you think they are as a team? Are they a team that you feel comfortable saying could do more than just be a one and done in the playoffs?
They could.
Sure.
I've come around more to the second round than I was maybe recently. But it's a team that like I wouldn't be shocked if they somehow were really fighting for a spot in the Western Conference Finals. I wouldn't be shocked if they were out in the first round. Like I think that playoff inexperience does really stand out to me, and we'll have to see how much of a jump they do take defensively. As Sean was kind of saying, that's what you'd expect going into the postseason. I agree. We just have to see how significant that is. I like the Hawks are a team that stood out to me a lot. And there was a year that they were able to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, primarily just on the back of their offense. When they're eighth in offense, 21st in defense, they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then the year after that, they're second on offense, 26th in defense, and it's a first round exit. They won one game. I think there's so much variance with this type of basketball that it's hard to predict, but I do think that they're a tough out no matter what series.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm just seeing somebody's comment that was pretty funny, so it just totally distracted me. I will ask this. Like, I think it's one of these irresponsible things, but I think it because fans will do it, and I think we should probably participate in it as well. I'll answer it this way: if the playoffs were to start today, okay, and let's for the better part of just for the sake of conversation, let's just eliminate, if you will, the play-in tournament. I think the Kings would play the Warriors with the 7th seed right now, right? Tied for second, probably win the conference record. So if you're playing anyway, I guess if you're looking at the back end of the postseason and you're saying, okay, who do they match up well against? Like if you're looking at all those teams down there, it's like, obviously we've talked about how the Kings are kind of the hunted and everybody would want to play them for various reasons, but none of which most withstanding is the fact that they just haven't been there yet. So you're relying on playoff success versus a team that doesn't have any experience. That's fine. But is there any team that you can identify down there that you would want to play?
Dallas. It's probably the only
Dallas.
That's the one that stands out
And
to
you're
me.
talking about a team who just added Kyrie Irving, and we know how that's that's well documented. But at the same time, went very had a deep playoff run last year against the Warriors.
I think they were really good defensively though, and I do think they lost a good bit of that in that deal. And
Jalen Brunson, yeah.
Get me in a shootout with anybody in the league. You know, if it's a race to 140, I'll take the Kings over anybody.
I talked to
they lost Brunson, they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, and they lost who's the point guard they gave up in the Kyrie. Doggone it. Played at Washington last year. Yeah, Dinwiddie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they lost some firepower off of last year.
Like I think I don't think Minnesota is a very intelligent team, but there's so many mismatches on that team to me, and their length would give, I think, the Kings fits. And I wouldn't want, if I'm a Kings fan, I wouldn't want any of them either. I think Golden State is scary. Lakers is a team that if they can get to 7, and you play them, sign me up for that. I think that'd be a fun series.
No, thank you. They horrify me.
But they should horrify you, especially with some of the pieces they've. And here they are, steadily climbing up the standings here. Winners of 3 straight, 7 of their last 10, and sitting in the 9th. So it's just difficult because, like, I'll be honest, I don't see a lot of wins in any of these playoff series. I just want to see it, though. I definitely want to see it because I want to see how this team, the Kings I'm talking about, will respond to some of the adversity and being an underdog. It's weird to think that you're going to be a 2nd seed and you might go up against a team like the Clippers, for example, and might be considered an underdog, or even the Warriors and possibly be considered an underdog in that series.
I think to present the other side real quick, not to interrupt you, James, but in that 2-7, let's say, just to keep going with the hypothetical here, no play-in, but just to lay this out, right? They play against the Warriors. The Warriors do have to play 4 games on the road, and they are absolutely trash on the road this year. We'll see
terrible.
what ends up changing.
7-26.
Yeah, and then the next round would be a 3-6. So you're playing the winners of Memphis and Dallas. And is it crazy that the Kings could beat either one of those teams too? Like, I do think it's reasonable that we're talking about like Western Conference Finals.
Going back to the Warriors discussion real quick, and I know I'll catch some heat here. What's Golden One Center look like for that game?
Oh, I don't know, man. I know that there's going to be Bay Area money that comes up, but I think the fans are like this is
Fans
not
gotta
a
do their
Lakers
part.
game situation. Yeah,
Fans are gonna
this
have
is
to do
not a
their part
Lakers
for-
situation where
Yeah.
where fans are taking a bunch of money to sit front row. This is going to be, I mean, an event, I think, in Sacramento. Like,
And I think
I
it
like
would-
how
I
the
think
city's rallied around him.
Yeah, and I agree, James. And I think it also, I mean, you can say the same thing with the Lakers. I mean, we've seen what years past this starts looking like a Staples North or Crypto now, whatever it is, or even a Chase Center North at times. But that never happened before in the Kings' heyday. And it's fun to see this team turn around. I wonder what a postseason could look like against one of those two teams that generally travels very, very well. And conversely,
Yeah.
I might add, I'd like to see what the traveling party for Kings look like, because we've seen a lot of Kings fans on the road this year, which is and they travel in droves, man. So I wonder what it would look like for a playoff series.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Do I think that I think the crowd in Golden One is going to be nuts. Like going back to the 95-96 playoffs, or the 99, 2000 to 2006. like the fans just are just different here, and they're noisy and crazy, and like I don't think we're gonna see a lot of split audience. I think we're gonna see a lot of Kings fans that are noisy. But as far as the other teams that they would face, I don't think I worry as much about like the Pelicans or the Timberwolves. These teams that haven't been there before, like the Kings, or have been there but one time. And so, like those are the teams that I would kind of hope that the Kings were looking at, like we're hoping to get. But again, I don't think they care what they've done to like the Lakers this season. Um, and you haven't faced the Lakers at this strength, but then again, it didn't matter every time they're 3-1 against the Lakers or 3-1 against the Clippers. And again, the Clippers, like whether they're missing players or not, like they just don't seem like the same teams that they were before. Now, once the postseason starts, maybe they will be different. But I think
No, but you hit on one thing. The players and coach, they don't care. They don't care. I'm saying
no.
fans, media, they should care. So like, who did you identify one there?
That I would want them to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they can, like,
Or who's the most likely you think they'll play?
I don't like if I lump like Dallas, the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, in one group and say, okay, like I think the Kings can beat any one of those teams, and then you look at the veteran teams that you could play in, Golden State and the Clippers. Those are the ones, and even the Lakers. Those are ones that I personally would be slightly afraid of. Not them. Like I don't think that they feel that way, but like I go back to the 98-99 playoffs when the Kings made it for the first time with Vlade and Peja and Weber and Jason Williams and John Barry, like that group. They got abused by John Stockton in the playoffs. Like, and they almost got out, but still there were moments where, like, do you remember John Stockton?
I do.
Like he kept hooking, grabbing Jason Williams' arm and sucking it in and getting a foul call on Jason Williams again and again and again. Those are the moments where you're like, okay, that was a good team.
Bro.
Like, yeah.
I was like, who do you think they'll play? And here we're talking about John Stockton and John Barry.
I'm just saying, like, historically, that's what happens when you get into the playoffs. You go up against Chris Paul. Chris Paul's going to do a bunch of stupid stuff and make you look bad. And he gets under your skin and he takes you out of your game. And, like, those are the guys that you have to look out for. The veteran teams that have those crafty, like, players that do stupid things to get you in foul trouble and take you out of your game. That's where I think the Kings would hope to avoid. Like, it. Karl Anthony Towns is back for Minnesota. I don't think the Kings still fear them. If Zion is back, that team's a little more scary. But again, the Kings are good offensively, and they beat that team. So I don't know.
What if? So are we in agreement that if you're looking at the play-in tournament, or maybe we're not in agreement? Warriors, Lakers, they advance out of the postseason play-in tournament. Yeah. No.
I don't know.
Yes, for me.
It's a one game deal. Like, no, I think they can be beat by anyone.
No, I'm saying if you were predicting today, okay, so currently in the play-in tournament, you got the Warriors, the two Wolves, the Lakers, and the Pelicans. Pelicans are the 10th seed. Who are the two that come out?
I don't know. You would think that the Warriors for sure, but after that, I don't think I'm going to make a prediction because all of those teams have been a mess.
You're like me in the beginning of the season trying to pick a win total. I'm just saying today, if you had to bet money, who are the two that you would identify coming out of the play-in tournament among those four? I'm not even saying if if Utah somehow or Portland somehow bounces in there, they're not going to get in there. But if you had to pick two out of those cluster right now, Warriors, T-Wolves, Lakers, Pelicans, who comes out of the postseason play-in tournament?
I mean, if I was just predicting, it would probably be Lakers and Warriors.
Okay, same. I agree.
I do very much get
not
James'
holding
point,
it.
though. Like, one game, anybody can win on any given night. The
100%,
Knicks were winning 9 in a row and then lost to Charlotte. Like, anybody can win on any night when it comes to one game.
Well, even, like, look at what the Pelicans did to the Kings when they were missing Valanciunas, Zion, and Brandon Ingram. And then look what the Kings did to the Pelicans when they had Brandon Ingram back. They had Valanciunas back. They didn't have Zion, but, I mean, the Kings demolished them. Not demolished, but Like it was the Kings won handily. So yeah, I think it's funny. Like Jim Thoroughkill in the chat says Fox would smoke Stockton. Man, I mean John
Now.
Stockton, like yeah now, but even like a 32-year-old John Stockton back then. I mean John Stockton holds the all-time
never stopped-
assist record,
Well,
but also the
yeah, he
all-time
does.
steal record. The all-time
Yeah,
steal
and
record
he's
is
got-
John Stockton.
He's got a lot of inflated stats that probably didn't happen also. But I will say this. I mean, people like to hate on John Stockton. That dude never stopped running. That guy ran a marathon every single game, and he could do it quick, he could do it slow, and that dude just never stopped running.
Oh no, he
wore
was
you out.
incredible to watch. It's really
He
too
wouldn't
bad
wear out
that
De'Aaron Fox, but
yeah. No, it's really too bad that that Stockton's two heroes from that era are now almost pariahs, or they are pariahs. I mean, like those guys to watch on the court was really, really impressive. Just like a 6-point lead with 4 minutes left in a game, you were done. You had no chance against Utah. They weren't going to make
Unless
a
you're Michael
mistake
Jordan.
or maybe two mistakes. Yeah, unless you're Michael Jordan. But like watching them in the regular season, it didn't matter. I mean, for years, if they got a 6-point lead with 4 minutes left, you might as well just cash it in. There was no way to actually beat them. So, do you guys have any questions for us out in the audience? Since we are on a live show right now.
somebody did ask a question that got my attention about what was the best rainy day board game. So
Oh.
sort of super off topic, but phenomenal question. Thank you for asking. I think I'd go. It depends if you got a group. It depends on how big your group is, but I think Balderdash might be my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah,
Brendan, do
that's
you
a
know what a
good one.
board game is?
I do.
Just wondering.
I do.
Do you have a favorite
It's,
board
it's a
game?
camping activity for
He
me.
knows Shoots and Ladders. That's about where it. Every kid
Life.
knows that.
Do
Life's
dice game
amazing.
count as board games? Like, does Yahtzee count in this conversation?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That counts. Yeah.
That was probably the game I played most growing up.
Okay.
Now I know why you are the way you are.
I played a lot of cards when I was young. Like I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house, and we
Did you
would
have
play
one of those
rummy.
green visors?
No, but
Oh, no.
yeah, I would sit next to her and we would play solitaire. Like I would have my deck of cards and she would have her deck of cards. When I was like 4 and 5, like I would play solitaire for hours with my grandma. I've played a lot of cards in my life.
James, I know you're competitive with those type of games, but Sean, are you like uber competitive with that type of
I'll
stuff
kill
too?
you.
Okay,
I
yeah.
will kill you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with friends we used to play Risk a lot. Like I like playing
so
Risk.
good.
Risk is amazing. So, but it's been a long time.
Risk is the one where you screw over everybody, try to find these allegiances, and you just absolutely screw each other over. It's great.
I'm trying to screw over
Yeah.
everybody all the time.
We did what was the other game? So the family and I signed the wife up for, I think it's called Dear Sherlock. So we get a letter in the mail every week, and we right now we're doing this where we get a letter and then you get like clues and you're trying to solve like a Sherlock Holmes case. So we do that, but I don't know. Do we have other
Any
questions?
kind of trivia, I got you guys. I'm in, especially if it's like pop culture stuff, which Brendan fails at, but I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like trivia as well. We got this one. Are media people going to be given passes to the playoff games, or do you guys have to buy them? Special section for you, or are you guys going to get your normal seats? It's a good question.
We ain't buying
Christopher, we do not pay for anything. We don't pay for tickets to the finals, or we do have to pay, which is always sketch, is last-minute airfare and last-minute hotel stuff because we don't, as of right now, we have no idea where they're going to play. And so there is no like 2-week grace period with Southwest Airlines to get your plane tickets. So plane tickets will be more expensive. Everything will be more expensive. Tyler, I also like Catan. It's a good game.
What is that?
And I'm not Settlers. It's basically, you know what? I would put it in the same
Oregon
category
Trail?
as Risk. No, it's like there's a map and you can build fences and you can build like you get cards and I don't know. Let's see.
Dynamite description of that game. Can't wait to play that one.
Let's see. No, it's fun. It is fun, but I'm super competitive in those situations. I don't like losing board games or anything else, and so
Have you ever flipped a table out of anger?
no. No, but I have
not
someone
that guy.
say, "Why do you have to win every time?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?
Why are you
Like
playing?
I
Right.
don't show up and like try to lose. Like I'm here to win. I'm like, we're playing a game. It's a game. There's a winner and there's a loser, and I want to be the winner. That's all."
No one said Monopoly, but that feels like that's a game until you just play until someone quits or gets bored with it. Because I don't think I've ever finished a complete game of Monopoly.
Yeah, especially I mean it's a good rainy day thing. Does Trey like Pulp Fiction? That's it. I don't know if Trey likes Pulp Fiction. I do know that Kenny and Damien have never seen Pulp Fiction, which I thought was
What?
crazy. Yeah, we had that discussion on the show the other day. Brendan, have you seen Pulp Fiction?
No,
Part of it.
He's never seen it.
Oh, part of
That's
it.
lost on him.
You got to watch Pulp Fiction. You got to watch Four Rooms. You got to watch
Rasan was really on me about watching Pulp Fiction last year.
Reservoir Dogs.
Hassan is a former media relations person of the Kings and now over in
Yes.
Portland, and he loves that movie. By the way, you should love that movie, and you should watch any Tarantino movie just to.
I mean, some of them are a little.
Long ass movie.
Yeah, some of them go a
It's
little
not,
too
bro.
far
Stop.
with the. Yeah. I don't. Brendan would love the basement
Jackie
scene.
Brown's phenomenal. James Tyree,
Yes.
great call.
Yep.
Love that movie.
Let's see. Do we have any other questions before we get out of here?
Yeah, Brendan, have you watched Life?
Nope. Haven't watched any movies.
Oh,
You're
damn it,
letting us down,
Brendan.
buddy.
Damn it, Brendan.
I thought you agreed that you were going to watch one of these homework assignments that were going to be due, like, a month ago, something like that.
Oh, Sass, I did finish everything everywhere all at once. I did. I thought it was really good. I don't feel like maybe I'm crazy. I don't feel like that was an Oscar movie, but I mean, I still thought it was good. So yeah, I'm sure Brendan hasn't seen The Usual Suspects.
No chance.
Never heard of it.
Do I like Paps? Like if I'm, well, it used to be
You're
if I
wearing a
was
hat, aren't you?
singing karaoke, yeah. If I'm singing karaoke at the Pine Cove, then sure, $2 pitchers of Paps is just fine.
What's your go-to
But
karaoke song there?
well, that's a good one. I like to do Neil Diamond stuff. I can sing Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know.
That's
like
a long song, too. Anybody who picks that at karaoke, die.
it's just too long for you.
Too long.
Okay.
I'm like Brendan, we're watching a movie. It's just too long. That song goes on far too
Sean,
long.
I've heard you sing Journey with
It wasn't my pick, but I did it.
Yeah, who was that with? That's
Nick Monticelli?
yeah, Nick Monticelli in Vegas. Yeah,
Monticelli,
what's your
former from Channel 10, now works in the Detroit area.
Detroit? Yep. So what's your song, Sean?
I Touch Myself by the Divine. No, I'm kidding. That's what I usually pick for somebody else.
Oh, Sean.
I would say Creep, Radiohead. It's a good one. Or anything poppy. Party in the USA, some Miley Cyrus, something like that.
You know who's fun to sing karaoke with is John Santiago. John can sing. And he always wants to do duets, and it's like, dude, I don't know any of the songs you're singing. Like, so it's my bad. I don't have, my catalog isn't.
I always say that my playlist looks like it belongs to a 16-year-old girl, so I'm down to sing anything poppy on the radio currently. I got y'all.
I'm gonna guess Brendan has never seen The Holy Grail. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
No.
He
No,
is not.
come on, man. Has anyone out there watched History of the World Part 2 on Hulu? Because History of the World Part 1, Mel Brooks, is like such a classic. It's I drink alone, all by myself. All right. Well, I think we've dragged this out. So
Jesus,
I think
Black Sabbath at karaoke, that's a
that's
big pull.
yeah, you're going hard there.
I'm not. I don't have that in me.
Since you asked me, mine would probably be some Jack Johnson song.
Oh, really?
Oh, sitting, waiting, wishing.
That or
the
Upside
name?
Down.
Oh, it's a
Be
good
one of the two.
Look at Brendan.
Really?
You got
Are
it.
you
This is
joking with
great.
us?
No, actually.
You know what? What's it called? Not Guitar Hero, but what's the other one? rock band. Man
they
in
do
the
purple
Box by
shirts.
Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains, a good one. I like that show.
That's one that I like to build.
They want purple. Yeah, there's probably gonna be shirts on seats for what does that do? Game 1 to flood arena once in color. I don't know.
Yeah, game
I
one
don't even know if
there
there's
will
gonna be
be
shirts, probably.
shirts on every seat. Game 2 there will be shirts on every seat. Every Kings fan will get a shirt.
What was the
I know
glow
this.
sticks? Didn't they throw glow sticks on the court one time when the
Okay.
referees screwed the Kings one year?
They also had the bracelet thing that they did the one time, but Vivek was, owner of the Golden State Warriors, and they put the yellow shirts out every single game. And then their fans look like minions.
Steven, what did you ask? We didn't mean to ignore you. I'm trying to find his comment, but
Yeah.
I can't.
Sorry, Steven. We ignored you.
Oh, he wanted to know more likely to happen: Coach Brown, Coach of the Year, Monty for GM of the Year. Probably Mike Brown
Both.
for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I think both, though, is also possible. I don't know.
It's kind of funny. I actually probably would vote for Monty McNair as Executive of the Year, although Phoenix did just get Kevin Durant. But yeah, man,
It's about winning, though.
Quite a turnaround.
Yeah. I would probably, I think it's probably even. Maybe not. Okay. Let's see.
I like
James,
the comment that just says, "I love basketball."
James and Sean, are y'all salty that Brenden gets to cover a Kings playoff team so early in his career?
No, because my first year they made the playoffs and they were in the peak of their power. So Brenden didn't get to experience that in his first year or year and a half, whatever. When did you join us, Brenden? When were you birthed?
I got a couple Walton games under my belt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not salty about that at all. It's almost it's almost like mine.
Yeah, I'm glad for Brenden. And I'm also glad he doesn't have to get jaded by like some of the things that we've seen.
I'm not jaded. Am I jaded?
Oh, Sean, you're so fucking Sean.
What do you mean?
You're so jaded.
I wouldn't say that I'm jaded. I'm just proving
We're
it.
realists for
Yeah,
sure.
man, just prove
Like
it.
we try to keep it straight and like
It's not an echo chamber of sucking off the organization. It's you have to. I mean, Jesus, man, you're gonna have to.
he went full Malik Monk on us.
Yeah, well, we're all adults. We can handle this.
He went full Malik Monk on us right there. No, I'm excited for Brenden to
by
have
the way,
this opportunity.
I know you say I went full Malik Monk. Let's go back to that moment because, yes, he made a very unfortunate gaffe in his
Vernacular.
words.
Yes.
And we all went 6th grade and started laughing like we were in class. But
oh no, I pulled my phone down and I instantly cut it and
Yes,
sent it out and got 150,000 views.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but go ahead.
But it was my question, and I had a microphone in my hand. My professionalism was severely tested, strongly that moment, and
You asked another question pretty quick.
very quickly because Malik shot me a look, like keep talking, guy, and it took everything in my power not to laugh or say something stupid. I think I deserve a hug or an A.
Yeah,
for the day or
you did
something.
okay in that moment. You
man.
could have gone like full wedding singer, like, well, I have a microphone and you don't, so I will say whatever I want and you will listen. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Sean,
So-
you've joked about my giggle. I think that was like a peak
Yeah.
giggle for me in that
Peak.
clip, to be honest. You could really hear it. I was not very quiet with my reaction.
It was right next to me, right next
Yeah.
to the
I think all you hear
the
in
mic.
me is just go, whoa. And me and Fox basically said the same thing. We're like, whoa.
Hey, Fox is like,
Well,
And I'm
Whoa.
so glad that nobody said, anyway, I'm not going to say it, but
What people didn't get to see is that when they were walking off, Malik was kind of like, bro, like, are you trying to get me in trouble? What was that? And they had a hilarious little back and forth on the walk off as well.
it reminded me of the ESPN commercial with the Manning brothers where they're getting the tour of ESPN and they just keep like
kicking
talking
each
shit
other
and
and
hitting
stuff.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they feel like. They feel like brothers. I mean, I think it's.
Well,
it's
they're
good to
very
see.
different though. I mean, they
Oh,
are
totally.
polar opposites, but they're
I
but
have
it works.
2 boys, and one of them is a total introvert, and one's a total extrovert. I mean, like, couldn't be personality wise more night and day. Now they have similar tastes as far as like movies and stuff like that, but as far as personality, like my little dude can walk into any room and just talk it up with anyone. My my oldest doesn't even want to walk into the room to start, but once he is in the room, he looks for the corner to hide. So it's just it's funny to watch those guys go at it though, and like kind of like bicker, like even that they practice where Fox got Monk in a headlock and then dragged him to the ground and made him do his push-ups. Like all of it just looked like two brothers that were hanging out. Okay, so let's wrap this thing up. Do we have any final thoughts? Let's go to Brenden first.
I found a stat today that I thought was amazing. And
Uh-oh.
within 4 feet of the basket, De'Aaron Fox is finishing 77%. And that is per cleaning the glass, which has like a garbage time filter for what it's worth. But that's better than Giannis's 73%. That's better than LeBron's 75%. Jokic is 73 and Embiid is 74. Among all those players with a garbage time filter, like I said, De'Aaron Fox is the best finisher at the rim. Now that the amount of attempts is obviously different for De'Aaron than those other guys, and that's important to note, but he's been ridiculously good at the rim this year.
Sean, final thoughts? Brenden always keeps it straight up basketball. Straight up basketball.
He sure does. That's why I'm going to do something different because that's silly. Hey, how about congratulations to the Colfax girls up in your neck of the woods, James. They didn't win state, by the way, but they advanced, and that was huge. They came up short yesterday, but just for it's so. If you go to any state basketball, by the way, here's my little credential too. If you go to any of these state basketball high school tournaments, the one thing you'll see is a ton of private schools. And to see if you're a school that's public and like the Colfax girls, who not a D1 athlete among them, no D2 scholarships. I mean, they're smart. I mean, they could probably, they've got a soccer player who's one of the best in the country, and she's like a freshman, but
watched her play.
They'll get scholarships in the classroom, but not really for their basketball acumen. And you just go and watch them compete with some of these teams, and even getting up to state, that's a huge, huge accomplishment. So good for them. There's another team that's out of the foothill areas. How about they're actually playing today? They may have already played. It's at 1:30 as we're doing this right now, but Bret Hart out of Angels Camp. And how about this? A blast from the past. Rick Fox, what? Oh, I'm told they've won. They did win. Rick Fox, his daughter, is the point guard for that team out of Angels Camp. So, congratulations to them. I know that's in our region, so to speak. So
Rick Fox lives
Oakland,
near Angels Camp?
No, but I think his daughter does. Rick Fox is definitely staying in LA.
Yeah.
But Oakland, you got Orlando Watkins, who is the head coach of Dame Lillard, and they win their first state title last night, and that was a fun game. So cool to see that. We saw Paul Pierce in the game rooting on Linwood last night. He was in the building. Chimezi Metu stopped by before they took the flight to Phoenix. So and I know Don Staley is out there recruiting tonight. So just you walk around the building and you'll see a lot of familiar faces.
Okay, sweet. Let's see my final thoughts. Sean hates the rain, and it's going to keep raining and raining and raining. So
you know what?
sorry about.
Maybe
sorry
I'm the.
about that.
By the way, my hatred of the rain is the cure for drought, because I get to speak on it, and guess what? We get We've got to be done with the drought by now, right? Do we still need it?
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about all the snow that just hit, and then the rain. First of all, the first couple of hours of rain makes the snow really heavy, so there's a lot of concern about like roofs and like how much weight they can support, especially up in the Grass Valley area, and like it's wild up there. But there's also concern that all of that snow is going to wash down the hill, and we're going to have a lot of flooding here in the next couple of days. So be safe out there. I think that's the biggest thing. Be super safe. It's going to be a while, and check on your neighbors. I think that's the other thing. Like, it's been a little crazy. The weather's been wild. Make sure all your neighbors are okay, especially the older ones, as we get into this weird weather that we're about to have. Let me see. Anything else? We good to go? I don't think I really have any other
it's about
thoughts.
beer o'clock, so let's get this on the show.
We got a game to cover later. What do you?
Go Duke, go Duke, right? ACC championship. We can let
Duke.
this happen. Virginia's a really
I'm
good
like
team.
George Shaw. F Duke, Sean. Just like
They're not this. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be this good right now, and they're not. They aren't. So if you're trying to pick them in your brackets, don't. But maybe they'll come out here into Sacramento though with the tournament. I'll be very happy if that happens.
yeah, I'll say this. My closing thing too. There's been a picture of Keegan and Chris Murray out that you can see, and it's funny after covering Keegan for a year now, like or 9 months, whatever it is, like you can tell the difference between them so quickly now. It is weird how like they're totally identical. When I watched them play last year, they're like it's really hard to tell them apart without seeing their number. Oh, I can see it now. It's not even a question. So, okay. I think that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. If you're still listening and you haven't given us a thumbs up, please give us a thumbs up. You can give us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. You can subscribe here to the YouTube channel, the Kings Beat YouTube channel. You can also jump on board with the Kings Beat. We got a lot of things coming up that we're going to have to pay for, like plane tickets and hotel stays and all that stuff. So all of that would help further the Kings Beat cause as we get closer to the playoffs. So jump on board with a premium subscription. We should have a happy hour to announce any day now. I've been dragging my feet a little bit because it's so chaotic with all the games. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for joining us. So for Fox 40, Sean Cunningham, and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you soon.